So, hi, welcome to this episode of History Hunters. I'm in East Grand Rapids, Michigan, supposedly the home of Gerald R. Ford, President of the United States. But I'm here specifically to do a video about what happened on one of the streets a little bit over on San Jose Drive. It's 1949. 4 people were murdered. It's the Pepler murders, and I'm going to talk to you about it on this episode. This is an example of what happens when domestic violence gets totally out of control.
Early in the morning of May 30th, 1949, what happened in this quiet upscale neighborhood of East Grand Rapids, Michigan would be the talk of the town for decades. This block was home to a couple whose marriage started out well, but would later unravel with frightening consequences. It would be the first significant murders in East Grand Rapids when Richard Pepler broke into this house and killed his estranged wife Frances and both of her house guests, a married couple. He then turned the gun on himself, bringing the total death count to 4. The 47-year-old Richard Pepler was upset about his wife wanting to separate from him and believed that she was having a relationship with another man. Frances Peppler, 29, had claimed he was shiftless and would not financially support his family, which included her and their young daughter. Divorce actions were pending, and Frances sought a restraining order to keep him away. Just 3 days before the shooting, Frances Peppler informed her attorney that her estranged husband was harassing her with phone calls and would often park outside their San Jose Drive home and stalk her from a distance. Fearful for her life, on May 28th she asked her friends, Richard and Stella Sisuarda, to stay with her. They were all asleep at about 2:45 a.m. when Richard Pepler entered the backyard and cut the telephone wires.
I just spoke to the owner. He said I could run the property and take some video of it, and he's open to ghosts, but he hasn't had any kind of weird paranormal type activity that took place here. I happen to believe that once you die, that's it. You don't haunt places where you were murdered. But it's really sad because this murder is probably one of the worst murders that ever took place in Grand Rapids, and probably hasn't happened like that ever since. Whereas in my hometown of Modesto, about 2 blocks from my house, there was an incident in which a man killed 5 people, killed his mother, killed his estranged girlfriend, and killed her 3 children. Just very tragic that men have to act like that. So I just talked to the owner of the house, and apparently there was a French door back here, and Mr. Pepler came here at like 2:30 in the morning.
He then broke into the screened-in porch at the rear of the house, armed with a 12-gauge shotgun. He broke the glass of a French door window, reached in, and unlocked the door. Stella Sisuarda was shot in the shoulder as she was lying in bed and died of shock and blood loss. Pepler then shot Richard Sisuarda, who had awakened to the gunshots and fetched a pistol and tried to shoot Pepler first. He collapsed and died on the stairway. Frances Peppler began running from the house, but was chased down in the driveway and fatally shot in the back. He then turned the gun on himself. Neighbors called the police, and when they arrived, they found the body of Frances in the driveway. Mortally wounded Richard Pepler was asking for water and complaining that he couldn't breathe. He died before the ambulance arrived. Police went upstairs and found 18-month-old Frances Margaret Pepler crying in the crib. When they searched the body of Richard Pepler, they found a blood-soaked note which read, quote, "I'm going back when the lights go out, and she will pay through the nose. The dirty cheater, she can't have my baby." Pepler's car across the street yielded a second note which mentioned that he saw a man at a party at the house earlier in the evening.
So the owner, Eric, was telling me that it probably was the last homicides here, the most notable homicides here in Grand Rapids, which thankfully, if that's the case, 1949 happened so long ago. And apparently, and when he bought his house, I think he said he bought his house about 22 years ago, they did not have to disclose on the real estate forms that the homicide had taken place because of the length of time that, had elapsed since he purchased the house and the murder took place. So that's something I didn't know. But let's go check out the graves that we can find that are associated with this particular murder-suicide case. So me and the grandkids had a really tough time trying to find the grave of Frances Peppler, and we were sadly mistaken. She's not buried under the last name of Pepler for obvious reasons. Her husband killed her. So she's buried right here under the name of Frances Duffy, 1919 to 1949. She's buried right next to her mother, Frances Duffy, 1889 to 1940.
Frances Louise Pepler was the daughter of the late James Duffy, who once owned the Grand Rapids Hardware Company. When he died around 1939 or 1940, he left $500,000 to his son and daughter. But the son, James Pepler Jr., was killed in France on July 18, 1944, during World War II.
So I've come over to the West Lawn Cemetery here in Grand Rapids, looking for the grave of Stella Saiswerda, who was the victim of one of the victims of the Pepler murder-suicide case. And I've been out here for about 10 minutes looking for her last name of Saiswerda, but she's here under the name of Stella Malone, and her husband is buried at the same cemetery that Richard Pepler is buried at, which is a separate cemetery. And unfortunately, there's no GPS coordinates for that entire cemetery. It's Sunday and the cemetery office is closed, so I'm not going to be able to show you the graves of the other two victims, the male victims, the perpetrator and the innocent male victim, the husband of Stella, because it'd probably take me all day to find those graves, but I'm going to show you Stella's grave right now. So this is Stella's mother, Stella Malone. They have the same name. As you can see, Stella was born in 1878, and unfortunately, she was alive when her daughter was killed. And here is her father, and the victim's father is Thomas Malone. He died in 1938, so he was spared of the details. But here's Stella's grave. Killed by Richard Pepler, 1949. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of good pictures of her. We just have what the newspapers published. As you could tell, she was just 32 years old. What an incredible waste. What a jerk this guy was. Kills 3 people, kill himself. What a coward. So I'm going to go off topic a little bit because sometimes I see things in the cemetery that are unrelated to the subject matter. But it's an entire family picture. I've never seen this. Look at this. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. The William T. Manning family. And if I'm not mistaken, that is actually the South High School behind them. Must have been during a graduation ceremony. So I just want to add my commentary. Too many times across this country in any given day, these kind of violent crimes happen where the estranged husband just snaps and can't handle it. It's very sad. It destroys families. If they could just find a way to deal with the anger and the emotions and the grieving, I guess, and seek out some professional help, lives will turn out much better. I'm always grieved when I hear about stories like this, and it just seems like every time you turn on the TV, there's some immature guy can't handle it, and then he goes and he takes a gun or a knife and he ends up taking out entire families for what? It's waste, it's senseless, and there's help available. So if you're in that situation, please get help. And then there's a judgment that you're going to have to face someday. So wouldn't want to be in your shoes if you were the type of person to commit a heinous crime like this. If you could leave us a comment, that would be helpful to us. Let us know if we're on track to cover the things you like to see us, cover in our videos. And if you could give us a thumbs up, even though it's a pretty negative, nasty thing that happened here in Grand Rapids in 1949, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll do some more positive things in the future. Thank you.